Hey y'all, assalamu alaikum. Welcome to my channel. So I'm going to do a quick intro. My name is Ayanna. I'm 27 years old. I'm a wife to an amazing husband, and I have one little girl. Her name is Amina, and she is almost 7 months old. So I am a mom, and I wanted to start this channel to share my experience being a mom and the whole postpartum journey, because it has definitely been a journey. I figured the best way to start off my channel would be to start with my birth story video. And I had a home birth, so I had my daughter here in my home, actually in my living room. And so I figured it would be a great story to tell y'all to kind of start off the channel. So this will be kind of a long video, so if y'all want to get a snack, put your baby to bed and just kind of like chill and relax. At the end of the video, I'm also going to do kind of like a Q&A. I asked y'all on Instagram if anybody had any questions, and some people sent me some questions about the home birth experience, so I'm going to talk about that at the end of the video. So I'm going to start off basically talking about how I found out I was pregnant. So found out I was pregnant last August, so August of 2019. I was 5 weeks pregnant when I found out. And my baby was planned. Me and my husband wanted to have a baby. We were ready, so we did plan to have her. I found out that I was pregnant, and then I had an OBGYN. So I'm talking about all of this because it's kind of relevant to how I led up to having a home birth in the first place. So I had a regular OB, like going to the doctor, and in the beginning I had thought about having a home birth, but I was like, I don't know, it's my first baby, maybe I should do it like in a traditional kind of like with a doctor and stuff like that. And I really did not want to have my baby in a hospital. I was like, a good compromise would be like a birthing center. So I had planned on having my baby at our local birthing center, which is actually really nice. It's almost like a spa. And so went through my whole pregnancy with my OB, got to my third trimester. I think I was 33 weeks pregnant. I was 33 weeks pregnant. Went to my regular checkup. Everything looked great. She came in and was like talking to us, asking me questions and everything, and everything was fine. I was super excited. Oh, I'm having a baby, blah, blah, blah. And then, girl, this lady looks at me and she was like, oh yeah, mind you, this was like the beginning of coronavirus pandemic, everything getting shut down and all that kind of stuff. Like, this was like right at the beginning when they were just talking about shutting stuff down. Yeah, we were at the appointment, and me and my husband are just sitting here listening, talking to her and stuff, and she's like, I have to tell you something. I'm not gonna she was like, oh, they shut down the birthing center. And I was like, what you mean they shut down the birthing center? Oh, the birthing center is completely shut down. They moved all of the patients all the patients to the hospital. So any women that were planning on or were delivering at the birthing center were now going to be delivering at the hospital. And I was like, but the whole point of it is so I did not have to deliver at the hospital. So I was upset off of that. Literally next sentence, she goes, oh yeah, and I can't, I'm not going to be delivering your baby. This was my face. I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, well, I don't want there to be any contamination, germs from the hospital and bringing them back to my office and possibly spreading it to my other patients. You've been taking care of me and my baby for the last 33 weeks. And you're telling me that you're not delivering my child? Like, what? And then when I asked her, like, who would be delivering the baby, she was like, oh, whoever's on call that night will deliver the baby. First you tell me I have to deliver in the hospital, which I did not want to do. Then you telling me you not delivering the baby. Sis. And so I like text my mom and my mother-in-law, and I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't want to have a baby in the hospital. This is what my doctor said, blah, blah, blah. And then my mother-in-law was like, you might want to consider having a baby at home. And I was just like, that's what I'm gonna do. Like, it literally took me less than like 5 minutes. I just thought about it and I was like, okay, that's what I'm doing. So the same day I called because my mother-in-law had a client who actually referred my midwife to me. So I called the midwife that she referred, and they were like, yeah, we'll take you. Alhamdulillah, they did, because usually they don't take women who are past 32 weeks pregnant because it's kind of really late in your pregnancy, and they like to be there from the beginning and all that kind of stuff. But they took me because of the virus, because my whole pregnancy I was low risk, which was amazing. super low risk and everything. I have any issues during my pregnancy, so they took me as a client, which I'm so grateful for. Oh my gosh. And they ended up being the best midwives ever. I literally did not make the decision to have home birth until I was in my 3rd trimester. So yeah, we had to play catch up with a lot of stuff. We had to prepare really, really quickly. We only had a couple weeks to prepare. We only had a couple weeks to get all of our supplies and everything. It was like crazy. We were super busy. So I will tell you guys about my actual home birth story. So Amina was born on May 30th, 2020 at 8:05 p.m. She literally came in at Maghrib. Like, I think the adhan was going off as I was like pushing her out. So altogether, I labored for about 13 and a half hours. So my contractions started at 6:30 a.m. like on the dot. And then she was born at 8:05. So about 13 and a half hours I labored throughout the day. My active labor wasn't until the last like 5 hours. So everything before that was really early labor and pretty easy, honestly. The first part of the day was like really easy. Those last 5 hours, okay, that's when stuff started getting real. If you ever like had a baby, you be forgetting stuff. Like, I literally like can't remember like all the details of my labor because I was pretty busy during it. So I had to ask my husband to fill in some gaps. So I went over my story, make sure I got everything right. Wake up in the morning at 6:30 a.m. Literally on the dot, because I remember feeling a contraction, and at first I thought it might be Braxton Hicks, but I was like, this feels so different. Like, it started in my back and wrapped its way around my front. So I was like, this feels like way different than Braxton Hicks. So I remember looking at my phone and it was 6:30 a.m. on the dot, like Fajr time, like it was like right on the dot. So I woke up and I was like, oh my God, is this it? Am I having a contraction? And so I kind of like was just walking, pacing around my room. My husband was still asleep. I didn't want to wake him up if it was nothing. So I was like, if I have another one, I'll wake him up. And so I did have another one, and it was very, very mild. It kind of felt like a period cramp. But like a period cramp that started in my back. Like, contractions are very weird to explain because there's nothing that compares to them. There's nothing that compares to contractions. So I had another one, and then I was like, okay, it was like, I don't even know, like 15 minutes apart. So I was like, okay, let me not freak out because maybe it's early labor. I'm not gonna wake him up yet. So I started having more. I had a couple more, and they were maybe like 15. They were like anywhere between 15 to 17 minutes apart. And so I woke my husband up after like 2 or 3 more contractions. And I was like, babe, I think I'm having like contractions. I'm having labor. So he was like really excited, got up. So we were up like super early in the day. I went downstairs. I was like on my birthing ball, and I was still having contractions it was very irregular, like I said, every 15 to 18 minutes. At 10 a.m. is when I actually first called my midwife, because they were like consistently 15 minutes apart. And so I called her, and she was just like, oh, it could still be early. Call me back in a couple hours and let me know how you feel. So she was like, call me back around like 1 p.m. or so. So I was like, okay, cool. And one thing my midwife told me to do, she was like, make sure you eat and make sure you rest. Go take a nap, go lay down. And I was just so excited. I could not like sleep or nothing. And I totally regret that. I wish I would have just went and took a nap because I was so tired by the time I had to push, I was so exhausted. But anyway, and the contractions were starting to get a little bit more intense than they were like that early that morning when they first started. So they were definitely more intense, but they weren't like I could talk through them. Like, I was like on FaceTime with my siblings, kind of making jokes and stuff. And so it got to around like 11 or so, they started getting more intense. And so I called my mom, because my mom lives in New York. I live in Connecticut. And so she's 2 hours away. And so she was like, make sure you let me know in advance so that I can like make my way down there. So I called my mom and I was like, you need to be on standby because I'm getting contractions and they're getting more intense. And so she was just like, all right, let me know. I'm ready. Like, she had her bag packed and everything. And so we also called my husband's mother, who was also there. So she was like, she lives literally 2 blocks away from me. So we weren't too worried about her getting here. But my mom, because she's, further away, I was a little bit worried about her getting here on time. By the time I had called them, it was like getting close to noon. My contractions were anywhere from like 10, like they were like about 10 minutes apart. I would say like 8 to 10 minutes apart. And at this point, they were like getting more intense to the point where like I couldn't talk through them. I had to like stand up and breathe and like actually breathe through it. So my midwife was like, okay, you know, real true like cervical changes don't happen until you are like 5 to 7 minutes apart, like until your contractions are 5 to 7 minutes apart. And so I was like, okay. So she said, call me back when they're getting like 5 to 7 minutes apart. No, 3 to 5 minutes apart. But she told me to call her back when it gets to 5 minutes. And so I was like, okay. So I was like on FaceTime with my siblings talking and everything. And then my mom showed up around like 1 o'clock. She got to the house, and by the time she got there, I literally was like moaning through my contractions because they were getting intense. Like they weren't like at the peak yet, but they were definitely getting intense. But in between them, I was still like laughing, joking, and everything. And so my mom got there at 1. My mother-in-law got there shortly after, maybe like 1:30-ish. Yeah, maybe like 1:30, maybe 2 o'clock. We had bought a pool because I had wanted to have a water birth. I really wanted to give birth in the water. That ended up not happening. But I really wanted to give birth in the water. So we had a pool. My husband was filling it up at this point. We had already blown it up like early that morning. So at this point, he was just filling it up because I had told them like I wanted to get in the pool because my contractions were starting to hurt a lot. And I did not know, but at the time I was having back labor. In the early part of my labor, it wasn't that bad. Like my back would hurt, but it wasn't that bad. When I was in active labor, it literally felt like my lower back, my tailbone was on fire every time I had a contraction. Back labor is no freaking joke. My contractions were getting closer. Again, like I said, they were about 7 minutes apart at this point. And my husband was filling up the pool. He got it to like a level where I could get in and whatever. And so I got undressed, got in the pool. This was around like 3 o'clock-ish. I'll say what, well, yeah, it was like around 3 o'clock. That's when I got in the pool. So this is when things started to get crazy. Remember I told y'all my active labor was about 5 hours. From 3 to 8:05 was my active labor. And I remember it because when I got in the water, I think the water kind of like intensified my contractions or picked things up really. Because y'all, before I got in the pool, my contractions were about 7 minutes apart. Got in the pool, I was in there for maybe like 10 minutes. Literally, I was having contractions every minute to a minute and a half. So I really think getting in the pool kind of like jump started me into active labor. And so, y'all, I was literally having back-to-back contractions for the last 5 hours of my labor. So, yeah, got in the pool. I was in there moaning. It wasn't no talking, nothing. I wasn't laughing, nothing. Between my contractions, I was just sitting there breathing, trying to like make it through the next one. Okay, I'm having flashbacks as I'm talking to y'all. But yeah, so I was in the pool. I was having contractions literally every minute and a half. My mother-in-law was timing them. My husband was also timing them on my phone. I think it was my husband was on the phone with my midwife and was like, hey, she's making a lot of noise. I was like moaning, y'all. I sounded like, you would have thought that I was ready to push. That's how I sounded. So yeah, I was in the water, and then my midwife's assistant, she actually got there before my midwife. She got there around like 3:30, and then my midwife actually came in very shortly after, like a couple minutes later, she got there. So my midwife assistant got there. She's the best. Her name is Christy, the best. She was like so great. And she should be like a certified midwife by now, but this was like a part of her training and stuff like that. So when she got there, she just, was really calm. She really calmed me down. She was like, how are you doing and everything. And, was always like super nice, just super sweet. And so I told her how I was feeling. And then she was asking me if I was ready to push. Did I feel like I needed to push? And I was like, I don't even know what that feels like. And she was like, okay, so you're not ready, because when you need to push, you will know that you need to push. So she did a vaginal exam, and she couldn't really tell if I had any cervix left. So she like I said, she was in training. So she was like, I can't really tell. So my midwife had to do another check on me. And so she checked me, and she told me I was about 8 centimeters dilated. And so I was like, 8? Oh my God. So I was still in the pool laboring, and then they were kind of setting their stuff up and everything. And so my midwife looks at my birth plan, and she's like, oh, I have to give you your antibiotics. So I was GBS positive when I was pregnant. Basically, GBS is, I'll put the name of it, the actual name of it, on the screen. But basically, it's just a bacteria that lives in your vagina. It lives in your gut, and you have to get, meaning that you have to get like antibiotics while you're in labor, so that when the baby passes, that bacteria doesn't get into them, because it could make them sick. It's really rare that kids get sick from GBS, but it happens. So yes, my midwife did give me antibiotics at home. I had an IV. She put the IV right here in my wrist. It didn't hurt. I'm pretty good with needles. Like, I don't like needles, but it didn't hurt at all. All I remember was like the contractions, because I think I was just too busy having contractions to even notice that needle was going in my arm. And she was like, do you want to get out of the pool, because it can kind of like speed things up if you get out, or it might be more comfortable if we try like you being on the couch or whatever. Because at that point I was like complaining that I was so tired. I was so tired, y'all. I was so tired. And so, because I had not napped earlier, remember I had been up since 6:30, so I was like so tired from laboring all day. And so I was like, okay, I'll try anything to like get stuff going, because I was like, these contractions are kicking my ass, okay? And then we were trying like different things, laboring in different ways and stuff like that, and I just did not like any of them. I was like, this all sucks, it hurts. And so my midwife assistant, she actually suggested that I go and sit on the toilet. She was like, sometimes it can be really relieving, and you know, just relieve some pressure and everything. So we went to the bathroom. I sat in the toilet. I had one contraction in that bathroom. Horrible. I hated laboring on the toilet. I was like, put me back on the couch. We went back to the couch, and I kind of like faced the back. I laid on my side facing the back of the couch with my leg up. But like, I literally had my leg up on my midwife assistant's shoulder. Like, she was holding me up, y'all. She was like the best. So I was laying there, and that was the best position for me to labor in, besides being on all fours. My husband was putting, he was sitting like in front of the couch and kind of like pushing my back to get me some counter pressure, and that helped a little bit. It didn't really help. He wasn't really doing nothing, but you know, he was there or whatever. And so I didn't realize that I was in transition, and transition is basically that point right before you, like, your baby's about to come out. And I was just like, I was so exhausted. I was so exhausted. It felt like I was in labor for years. I was like, this is never gonna end. And so I kind of like, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of like gave up mentally. And so I was just kind of like laboring on the couch, and I was just like, I can't do this. And then my midwife assistant was trying to get me to push, and I was pushing, and I wasn't really getting the hang of pushing. Like, I could feel, and you know when you're about to push, because it feels like you have to go number 2. So I was like, I could feel that feeling. And so when I would feel that feeling and I would have a contraction, I would push, and I would like use all of my might. So it was just draining me. Like, I was pushing for maybe an hour or so. The last hour is when I spent pushing, and I was just pushing and pushing, and I was like, nothing's happening. She's not coming. I was so exhausted, and I was just so tired. I remember telling them, like, I just want to take a nap. I just want to go to sleep. I just want to go to sleep. And they were like, she's almost here. And my midwife was like, Ayanna, I'm literally looking at the top of your baby's head. And I was like, no, you're lying to me. Like, she's not coming. Nothing's happening. And she was like, okay, somebody go get me a mirror. So she literally, my mom ran to my office and grabbed, I don't know if it was my mom or my mother-in-law. Somebody ran to the office and grabbed my mirror that I have in here and brought it to her. And she's like, Ayanna, look. So she put the mirror up to my vagina and was like, look, that is your baby's head. And so I looked in the mirror, and I literally see Amina's head, like right there. I see all of her hair and everything. And I was like, oh, I don't know what that did, y'all. Literally, it gave me that boost that I needed. I was like, oh, I can do it. As soon as I saw her head, I was like, I can do this. I was like, I gotta get this baby out. And so my midwife was like, why don't you try getting off the couch and doing a squat? That can be really good, and it'll also help take the pressure off of your back. And I was like, let's do this. I was like, hype, y'all. I was like, let's go. Like, we're about to get this baby out. So my husband was sitting in a chair like how I'm sitting right now. And then I kind of like squatted between his legs and put my arm on his thighs, and sat in a squat in between his legs on the floor. And as soon as I did that, I felt the ring of fire, because her head was, I was literally crowning, like her head was right there. My midwife was like, don't push until you have a contraction. So I was like, oh my God. And first of all, the squat felt amazing. Like, all of that pressure that I felt on my back went away. I wish I would have labored, and I was like, I wish I would have labored in a squat earlier, but whatever. Okay. I know for next time, inshallah, if I have another baby. So I was like, I don't know when I'm having a contract. And I literally didn't even finish my sentence. I had a huge contraction. She literally, like I said, her head came out and then her body just came out like right after. So she came out literally all in one push. I think it was more, I feel like I didn't even really push. I feel like it was more my body like just ejecting her out. I don't know. My body just was like on autopilot at that point. So she came out all in one push, and I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe that I just had a freaking baby. My midwife assistant caught her, and she actually put her on my chest, and I was just like, ooh. I actually watched my birth video. I was so scared to watch it because I was like, I don't want to see myself in pain and blah blah blah. So I actually watched the video and actually saw Amina come out, and I was like, wow, like it was amazing. So yeah, I was just like blubbering, crying and everything, and my husband was obviously, he was right behind me, so he went and said the adhan in her ear. That was like the first thing she heard was the adhan, which was so cute. And she actually peed on me while he was saying the adhan, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe like I had a baby. As soon as I pushed her out though, all pain, everything went away. Like thought people was lying when they said that happens. Literally, I had such a euphoric kind of feeling. I felt like I was high. I don't know what it's like to be high. I ain't never been high in my life, okay? But if I could imagine what it's like to be high, that's what it felt like. My midwife came and checked me. I did tear when I had Amina. So because she came out kind of fast and all at once, like I had a really big push. She just like came out. She came out really fast. So I did tear. I had a 2nd-degree tear, which sounds crazy, but it's really not. It's kind of like an average kind of tear, especially for your first baby. So I had a 2nd-degree tear, so I did have to get stitches. My midwife, she numbed me up and she gave me stitches. I didn't feel anything. And then what happened after that? I had some soup and all that good stuff. I was able to breastfeed Amina for the first time. I was so excited. And she actually latched right away. I did lose a lot of blood. And so when right after you have a baby, they really encourage you to use the bathroom because you want to make sure everything is working and all that kind of stuff. So she was like, I want you to go to the bathroom and pee. And I was like, okay. They tried to stand me up to go to the bathroom, y'all, and I saw stars. Literally, everything started going black. I was like, I'm about to fall. And so they had to sit me back down on the couch. Like, I was about to pass out because I had lost so much blood. We waited a few minutes, tried again, same thing happened. And then my midwife was like, okay, I'm going to give you a saline drip to rehydrate you. She gave me a saline drip. I sat down for like 15 minutes, and then I got up and I felt much better. And so I was able to go to the bathroom, do what I got to do, came back, had my baby. And yeah, so my midwife did like the newborn kind of like checks and stuff like that they do right after you have the baby. She showed me my placenta, which the placenta surprised me more than the actual baby. I was like, that came out of me, like that was crazy. I don't even tell y'all how I delivered the placenta. The placenta feels very weird coming out of you. It literally feels like something slimy coming out. It feels very weird, but it did not hurt. It just felt, I was like, ugh. Yeah, so that is the story of how I gave birth at home. I still can't believe that I did it. I had a very positive experience, although it was the hardest thing that I've ever done in my life. It's such an amazing experience, and I definitely will be having all of my babies at home as long as I am able to, inshallah. So, again, I told you guys that I had some people asking some questions on Instagram, so I wanted to answer those questions at the end of this video. So I have my stuff on my laptop, so I'm just gonna read it off of here. So the first question I get was, what is the pros and cons to having a home birth? So for me, the pro was that I got to be in my own space. I was comfortable. I didn't have to worry about people coming in and out of my room, people I don't know being there. I could be vulnerable, but also feel comfortable, also feel safe, feel loved. I could have the people that I wanted to be there, especially with COVID, because you can't have people in your hospital room. You can have disparate, like I could have whoever I wanted in my room. I could, have my family there and experience it how I wanted to. Also, after you have a baby, all you want to do is go to sleep. I got to sleep in my own house, I actually had a blow-up bed in the living room, but I was still in my own home and I felt comfortable. It's low cost, and much cheaper than having a baby in the hospital. So another pro is that you really are in charge of your birth. I don't have doctors telling me what I have to do and what I got to do and all that kind of stuff. I could really be in charge of where I labored, what positions I labored in, what position I pushed in, and all that kind of stuff. I wasn't confined to a bed and kind of like laboring on my back. Wasn't told that I had to push on my back. You know what I mean? There was no rules, you know what I mean? I could really take charge of my birth and really just do what felt natural to me. The cons, I don't have any cons. Literally, my midwife was able to do every single thing that a doctor could do for me at home. The only thing she obviously would not have been able to do was surgery, but like emergency surgery, a C-section or something like that if I needed it. But other than that, she could literally do everything else that a doctor could do in a hospital, but just at home. So I literally have no cons. It was all pros for me. So the next question was, how many people did you let come? So the people that were there, it was me, obviously, my husband, my mother, his mother, and then our 2 midwives. So there were 6 people there all together. So the next question is, did you have a midwife and did you have to pay out of pocket for her to be at your birth? So I did have a midwife. I had 2. I had a midwife and her assistant, who was a midwife in training. My midwives are with a company their company is called Birth and Beyond. Amazing. My midwife is actually retiring. I'm so sad. I only got 1 baby out of her. So I did have to pay out of pocket for a portion of it. My insurance covered most of everything else. So I think altogether it was around like $5,000, like anywhere between $5,000 to $6,000 altogether. I only had to pay $1,000 of that. So, and then we did have to pay out of pocket for like our supplies, our birth kit, and things like that, which was not expensive at all. Most of the things that we needed in that my midwife gave us a list of things that we needed. Most of the things on the list was stuff that we already had at home. So we didn't spend a ton of money on our birth kit and stuff like that. The thing that was the most expensive was the birthing pool. The next question is, did you take any drugs? No, I did everything unmedicated. Yeah. The next question is, besides COVID, what was the main reason you opted for a home birth? So, okay, I'll tell you this. I wanted to have a home birth. I really did not want to have a baby in a hospital. Again, I told you our birthing center was a good compromise, but the birthing center got shut down. Okay. But the main reason why I didn't want to have a baby in the hospital was because the medical system is not made for me. Black women are dying way too often in hospitals, having babies or being pregnant because people are not listening to them, because our pain is never taken seriously, and they're dying from things that are completely avoidable. So I really did not want to be in a space where I even had to think about that. So the next question is, did you have a doula? If so, how were they? So I did not have a doula. My husband was very adamant about being my doula. He didn't call himself a doula, but he was like very adamant, like, I'm your person during birth. The next question is, how was the cleanup afterwards of the house, the tub, etc.? So that's a good question. So my midwife is amazing. I'll tell you that again. I love her. So what she does is she had my midwife assistant sit on the couch with me right after I gave birth. And she was kind of like talking to me and keeping me like focused on her. And so while I was talking to my midwife assistant, my midwife was on the floor cleaning everything up, like all the blood and everything like that. I guess they didn't want me to see it, because obviously you have a baby, the last thing you want to see is a bunch of blood on the floor, okay? And I was bleeding a lot. So she was cleaning up while I was talking to my midwife assistant. So I never actually saw the mess. I never saw her clean anything up. After I finished talking to her, I looked and everything looked like brand new. Like the floor was cleaned up and everything. My husband did that. He had like a pump and he just kind of like drained the water into the bathtub, and he like took the pool down and stuff like that. But my midwife had took care of everything else. She did all the laundry, so any towels that were dirty or anything like that I was laying on, she took everything out and literally went to my basement and we like started our laundry for us, which was crazy. I was like, girl, you are like a one-stop shop. You do everything. So the cleanup was like quick. They do this all the time, so they have a system. The last question is, how does one even prepare for something so big and new? I think that's a really good question. Mentally, I just kind of like, I was already there. I feel like mentally, like I was just like, I'm ready to do this. I also went into it with no expectations. I was like, I don't know how my birth is gonna go. I don't want to go in there with expectations of something, you know, this it just being easy or amazing or whatever. I didn't want to have like a perfect birth plan in my head or anything like that, because I really wanted it to just go how it was supposed to go. And of course, you know, I made dua. I did not want anything to go wrong, but also I was just very realistic. Like, I don't know how this is gonna go, so I'm not going into it with any expectations. I think that really helped me as well, because I wasn't like, I wasn't disappointed if something didn't go the way that I wanted it to or something. So I just went into it no expectations. I was like, I'm just gonna experience this and see how we go, and that's what happened. This is a really long video. Hopefully y'all made it to the end of the video. If you did, thank you for watching the whole thing. I'm so excited to be making videos and talking to y'all. So if you have any more questions, you can leave them down in the comments. You can message me on Instagram. I'm really friendly. I will answer anything. I'm an open book, so you can literally ask me anything. I'm so happy to be starting my channel. I'm so happy to be talking to you guys about this stuff, because I'm really passionate about being a mom.